Hello everyone, this is the LEGO Icons Lamborghini Countach 5000 Quattrovalvole set. It has 1,506 pieces. I paid $180 US, 180 for it, and I built this live in one wonderful session over on Twitch. Be sure to follow me there. First of all, the build of this was definitely enjoyable for me. If you are all about that build process, I do recommend this just right up front. It did not give me as many oh wow moments as something like the Porsche 911 Turbo from the same line, from the Icons or formerly Creator Expert line. But I think part of that is just that I'm getting used to some of the amazing math that LEGO, the LEGO math that they put into some of their builds. There were definitely some clip connections that are made across disparate sections that were surprisingly tight and perfect that I never would have expected. But just generally, the whole assembly felt more confident all through and didn't have as many surprises. I'll get to, though, why I still ended up liking this quite a bit as a build process. I think one of the things that's making this much simpler feeling these days is the number of different slopes and curve pieces that they have, including inverted ones, that are really allowing them to do more gap fills, more edge finishes and corner turns and merges than they were able to before, without using quite as many funky techniques that felt a little bit more fragile, a little bit more like magic. Now things are fitting more confidently. You can definitely see a lot of that here with the near perfect fitment for the wedge plate piece right there. This is obviously just built on a slope, but it is ultimately on clip pieces in there to give it its angle. And you come up to right here, you do a total transition of building direction with some cheese slopes, comes right into horizontal building here. Obviously there's sideways building for the slight flare to the fender here. You've got the tiles that are used, relatively recent tile and all things relative, tile and notched wedge curve, notched tile over here as well. Stuff that just wasn't in the inventory 10 years ago. This is relatively new as well to LEGO, not new to brick building in general, but to the LEGO company in particular, to have kind of the cheese slope in the 1x2 format, 1x2 by 2/3. So that helps. Things like that help out a lot. Back here with the rear fender flare, you have two different sizes of these. I don't know exactly how to describe that. It's a macaroni style of piece, but it's also a slope and with the texture on it as well. The near 45 degrees slope. I don't know I don't remember the exact angle for that, but it matches up to standard old slope pieces. But here we're not using the standard old slope piece, using the slope piece that has no stud on top. Just the availability of all of these pieces really factors in. Oh, back here, that was absolutely critical. This slope piece right here, this 4-long slope piece that is full brick high, it's used up and down. That's dark red for the color there. Technically, it should be transparent red, but I think from any kind of reasonable distance, this works out just perfectly fine. But ultimately, what made me like this so much, what made me enjoy the build process so much, was that it felt more than ever like I was assembling a model, like it was a snap together model kit as I was building the chassis and the engine. This does have working steering. It's connected up to the steering wheel. It has a decent range of motion, but interestingly, it does not use any gears. However, it is very smooth. Once again, felt very confident going in. They used new wheels specific to this car. The same wheels are used at the front and the rear, but this shows you the shape. So they've got this deep dish on them, which is really nice, and it's curved in. I think the production there is good. And thank goodness, unlike with the open wheel cars, they did go with larger or wider rear tires. They did that by going with a standard width of tire here on the outside, and then a narrow set of tires to the inside, which if you look at it and it really bugs you, it might kind of get into your head. But honestly, to me, from any kind of distance or any just having this in person, it doesn't strike me that, oh, there are two tires back there. It's a dually. It doesn't feel bad in that way. It feels good. Again, everything is pretty tight in terms of gaps and all. But look at this engine compartment right here. Ooh. They even have suggestion of wiring there. This represents bundles, but just that level of detail is really starting to to feel more like a model. They've done good stuff with engines in the past, but this, I feel, even though it doesn't use too many crazy techniques or really special pieces, it just feels a cut above to me, just a little bit more detailed. And the process, the order of operations for putting things together, how that was being assembled before the roof was up, just everything felt very much like I was developing a model, and it just had a very nice flow to it. Again, looking at the steering here, you can see just a little bit. There's just a slide inside of there, and it's very, very smooth, and it does feel very good. It does use some Technic pieces. There's not a whole lot of Technic throughout this. I'd say it felt probably less like a Technic build on the inside than these things usually do, or than larger Lego builds usually do. You cannot open up the front here, so this is all completely sealed up. They've done a nice thing with the build for the headlights, where you've got a drum lacquered or coated silver piece, metallic silver color piece down there, which is just a tile, and that's behind a window panel element there. And you've got a couple of transparent tiles in there as well. No stickers were used on this whole thing. I could have led with that, but I chose not to. I didn't want to put too much focus on it because I personally am not a hater of stickers in general. You know, I do Gundam model builds, which have sometimes literally hundreds of stickers, and worse, water slide decals and dry transfers. But this definitely felt like a more premium experience than usual for the fact that no stickers were included. That's a print right there. That's a different print right there. That's a print right there. Coming around to the back, you've got 3 prints visible here, and then the interior also has prints. But before I get to the interior, this is all nicely sealed up. This is a reuse. The first time that we've gotten this windscreen piece in this color, it's the newer trans black. Previously we had it just in, I believe it was just the trans clear, correct? But notice there's not a single scuff on this, nary a bit of dust on it, because thank goodness they went back to what they started and then stopped, which was actually protecting the one-off, very rare and very important large windscreen pieces in sets. At least with this one they did it. They've got the nice static cling plastic over the top, which was worth spending some time talking about because I think that's so valuable and so important. They did it at one point and then they stopped, which was disgusting to me. They went all the way back. They regressed all the way to the point of just throwing windscreens into a box with no protection whatsoever. This has gone to where it needs to be, and they need to do that all the time. The scissor doors work, and it has a double articulation in there in order to get it to shift out of the way. So look towards the front of this. Here's a little bit closer look with a little bit more light. So you can see the pivot point, the red one, is moving up. The blue point is a lower pivot. So you have an extra arm there that's moving out of the way to make sure that this can seal up all nice and tightly. That actually has one single stud back here on the inside that locates it into place when it's closed. So it properly kind of latches into place, but it easily separates out. And then it moves out of its own way and allows you to go forward. There's a rubber band in there that will hold it in place like this. And it is the modern style of rubber bands, so you don't have to worry about those wearing out over time. They last for years, probably decades. I mean, we've seen some of them being around for decades now with essentially no deterioration as long as they're not fully stretched throughout their entire lifespan. But this mechanism does work very well and doesn't use too many pieces, and it's not frustrating to use either. It's very easy to confidently put that exactly where it needs to go to be closed, and opening it up, yeah, there's no hassle again. Inside, they've got that deliciously / disgustingly retro burgundy color, depending upon your point of view on that. It looks very right to me, and I especially like the texturing. The profile bricks there are actually new in that dark red color for this year, as I understand it. You've got the gear shift lever in the middle, which should stick up a little bit more. In the instructions, they actually show it being up more, but it doesn't really stay there, but it's not that big of a deal. Again, the steering wheel is actually connected up, and you have a print for the console there. So you can see the forward console. Obviously the center one is just an existing known print, but this one here is a new and exclusive piece. And here's what things look like on the interior from the other side. Oh yeah, printed Lamborghini logo for the center of the steering wheel as well. Of course, some folks want to see this comparison here against the 8 Widespeed Champions car, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this for folks who are just here for the big car, but I did want to include this. I'll do a separate video focusing on these two together a little bit more. All in all, pretty much everything is done better with this, of course, because it's so much larger. The resolution is completely different, but there's one thing that I think I like better about this one. This one doesn't have the B pillar, which is pretty important, but the size, especially the height of that side window, the main window, looks better on this one, I think. This one's a little bit too tall, but this one is just so short. Before the A pillar and this top of the door here got added on, it looked better to me. It looked like they just needed to add a little strip of white along the side here and it would have been good. But all of this right here, all this thickness and the extra thickness of the A pillar as well, make that window just way too small. Everything else is proportioned, I think, really, really well, but not that window. It just isn't the right scale. It feels like, so this is an 11th scale car. It feels like this is from a 14th scale car by comparison. You can look at photos of the real thing to see what I'm talking about. I'm also a little bit partial to the body color matched wheel inserts over here, and I think the proportions of the tail light groups are slightly better here. Arguably better. Maybe they're a little bit too small here, just a little bit, but these are just a little bit too big. However, that is a compromise that was made in order to get this to be a build rather than prints or stickers, and it did feel good. This does feel appropriate enough for a Lego build, and I think it's nitpicking of me to say that, well, this really should have been 2 millimeters shorter, because it probably should have been. But as a Lego thing, I think they've done fine. These are the only leftover pieces, including one valuable print there. And again, there's no sticker sheet for this set. Again, I paid $180 US for this. It's 180 euros, 160 pounds UK, or $240 Canadian for 1,506 pieces. It's a lot of money. Keep in mind that the Ford Mustang a half a decade ago had less pieces than this and was $170 US. So it's not like the prices of these have gone up a lot. I think the Porsche was also $170 US. Adjust for inflation, you're in the same range, but you've got more advanced, more well-sorted techniques here, more parts in the Lego part inventory to make everything fit together better for a better result, arguably. And all prints here, and thank goodness they also protected the windscreen on this, which just should be standard. Should always be standard. All in all, I feel like value here ends up being pretty okay as things go today. Lego really doesn't have a lot of competition here. Looking at competitive analysis, what else could you get? If you want one of these, what else could you get? What else could you do? You can get a model kit. There aren't a whole lot of model kits out there in this kind of size range, but to get something close, you're going to be paying probably a similar amount, and you'll get way more detail and perfect accuracy on everything, but it's a completely different experience. Not really a fair comparison there, where you have to paint everything, you have to cut everything, trim everything, you have to come with so many skills. It takes so much time. You need to deal with ventilation for glues and paint and everything. Is a whole different story. The closest you can come to this to look at a comparison for value competition would be large scale toys, and there aren't that many large scale Countachs made anymore, because it was a toy for kids in the 70s and 80s, not so much in 2024. And if you can find one, due to those mostly being targeted towards the collector market now, because it's older folks who want them, they do tend to be overpriced, and you miss the build experience. And the build experience here was very good. Definitely provides significant value to this being something made from Lego here. Overall, I feel very happy with this, with the exception of the window right there being so daggone small. I challenge anyone who thinks it isn't too small to spend some quality time on Google Images or whatever your preferred search engine is, looking at the real thing. Look at lots of pictures of them in different colors from different angles. This should be significantly bigger. It's the same problem that they had with the DeLorean, right? The side eyes of a car are important to its overall look. But that is a nitpick. That's a small thing. And I will do some experiments to see if I can swap out some pieces and make that look more like I would want it to be. And then the tail light groups are slightly too large. The wheels and tires, I think, are just a little bit too small and everything, but these are little things, honestly. given that this is made of Lego pieces and does not rely on any brand new parts that are specific, like unlike the Porsche, they didn't introduce a rear fender piece. Yes, they have found uses for that fender piece, but it's pretty weird. You know, it's an exotic piece. It's not like these new slope pieces back here, which can be used for a billion different things in the future, or the 1x2 cheese slope piece, or even the corner notched 2x2 curved slope pieces, things like that. Like these pieces are super useful. That rear fender piece was very, very highly specific. This has none of that kind of stuff. Most exclusive thing here is just the wheel, which is perfect, and that is going to be usable for other things as well. So all in all, I think the design team across the board has done really, really solid work here. I'm impressed. I was happy going through the build. It felt advanced. It felt satisfying, but it did not feel like a hassle to me at all. There was very little friction as I went along the way. The organization of the instructions, the parts bags, it's a solid, positive experience for me. And I hope that this video has been a positive experience for you and that I've brought you some value, whether or not you're interested in buying this thing. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.